The Six-Day War, fought in June 1967, reshaped the Middle East, redrawing borders and intensifying the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Key players included Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and Israel, each with their own motivations. The war's consequences extended beyond territorial changes to geopolitical realignments and humanitarian crises. Its echoes reverberate through the region to this day. The Six-Day War resulted in Israel gaining control over the Sinai Peninsula, Gaza Strip, West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Golan Heights. These territorial changes had profound implications for the region's demographics, politics, and security. The capture of East Jerusalem held particular significance for both Israelis and Palestinians, complicating peace efforts. The city's divided status reflects broader regional divisions. The mid-1960s saw escalating tensions between Israel and its Arab neighbors, with frequent border skirmishes and Palestinian guerrilla raids. Unresolved issues from the 1948 war, including the Palestinian refugee problem, continued to fester. Nationalist rhetoric and Cold War dynamics further fueled the volatile atmosphere. The region became a proxy battleground for superpowers, complicating regional dynamics. This external involvement added to the risk of a larger conflict.
In May 1967, I ordered the withdrawal of the UN emergency force from the Sinai Peninsula and mobilized our troops along the Israeli border.
Nasser's actions escalated the crisis, removing a crucial buffer and signaling a potential Egyptian attack. Nasser forged military alliances with Jordan and Syria, creating a formidable combined Arab force. The blockade of the Straits of Tiran, cutting off Israel's access to the Red Sea, was considered an act of war by Israel. This blockade became a key factor in Israel's decision to launch a preemptive strike.
Facing an existential threat, we decided to launch a preemptive strike.
On June 5, 1967, the Israeli Air Force launched Operation Focus, crippling the Egyptian Air Force. This gave Israel air superiority, a crucial advantage in the ensuing conflict.
The success of Operation Focus paved the way for our rapid ground offensive against Egypt, Jordan, and Syria.
The preemptive strike, while strategically successful, solidified the perception of Israeli aggression in the Arab world. The Six-Day War unfolded with remarkable speed and intensity. Israeli ground forces launched a coordinated offensive on multiple fronts, quickly gaining the upper hand.
The Egyptian forces in the Sinai Peninsula were caught off guard and suffered heavy losses.
The Jordanian army, after shelling Israeli positions in Jerusalem, was quickly overwhelmed.
After securing victories against Egypt and Jordan, we launched an assault on the Golan Heights, capturing it despite fierce resistance.
By the end of the 6 days, Israel had captured vast territories, including the Sinai Peninsula, Gaza Strip, West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Golan Heights. These gains dramatically altered the map of the Middle East and enhanced Israel's security. The capture of the Sinai Peninsula provided a strategic buffer zone. Control of the West Bank and East Jerusalem gave Israel strategic advantages, but also brought a large Palestinian population under its control. The Golan Heights capture eliminated the Syrian artillery threat to Israeli settlements. The capture of East Jerusalem held immense religious and historical significance for both Israelis and Palestinians.
For Palestinians, the loss of East Jerusalem was a profound blow, deepening resentment and determination to reclaim the city.
The reunification of Jerusalem under Israeli sovereignty created a highly contested situation. Israel declared Jerusalem its unified capital, a move not recognized by the international community. The city's divided status reflects the broader divisions that continue to plague the region. The Six-Day War dramatically redrew borders, altering the geopolitical landscape. Israel's territorial expansion brought strategic advantages and new challenges, including a large Palestinian population under its control. The new borders were not recognized by Arab states or the international community, leading to prolonged tension. Israel had to establish new governance structures in the occupied territories. These actions laid the groundwork for future conflicts and resistance movements. The Six-Day War exacerbated the Palestinian refugee crisis, leading to a new wave of displacement. The refugee crisis strained the resources and stability of host countries, contributing to social and political tensions. Humanitarian organizations attempted to address the immediate needs of the refugees, but the scale of the crisis overwhelmed many efforts. The plight of the refugees became a powerful symbol of the broader struggle for Palestinian self-determination. Many found themselves in overcrowded refugee camps in neighboring countries, living in precarious conditions. In November 1967, the UN Security Council passed Resolution 242, a cornerstone of diplomatic efforts to resolve the Arab-Israeli conflict.
The resolution called for the withdrawal of Israeli forces from occupied territories and a just settlement of the refugee problem.
The resolution's ambiguity allowed for differing interpretations, leading to a diplomatic deadlock. Despite its shortcomings, Resolution 242 set the framework for the future peace negotiations. The ongoing debates over its implementation underscore the complexity of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Following the Six-Day War, Israel began establishing settlements in the newly acquired territories. Driven by ideological, religious, and security considerations, the Israeli government supported the creation of Jewish communities. These settlements quickly became a major point of contention in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The establishment of settlements marked a significant shift in Israeli policy. The first settlements were often strategically located for security or historical significance. The Golan Heights and the Jordan Valley were among the initial areas targeted for settlement development. These early settlements laid the groundwork for a larger settlement enterprise. The motivations behind the settlement movement were diverse. For some, it was a religious imperative. For others, it was a matter of national security. Still others saw it as an opportunity for economic development. The establishment of settlements was met with immediate opposition from Palestinians and the international community. Palestinians viewed the settlements as a violation of their rights. The international community condemned the settlements as illegal under international law. The settlement issue became a central point of contention in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The Israeli military occupation of the West Bank, Gaza Strip, and East Jerusalem fundamentally transformed the lives of Palestinians. The Israeli military presence, coupled with administrative control over civilian affairs, imposed restrictions on movement, economic activity, and political expression.
Checkpoints, roadblocks, and permit systems became a ubiquitous feature of daily life, hindering Palestinians' ability to move freely and access essential services.
The occupation created a system of control that permeated nearly every aspect of Palestinian society. The confiscation of Palestinian land for settlement construction and military purposes further fueled resentment and resistance. Palestinians saw their land, a source of livelihood and cultural identity, being taken away to facilitate the expansion of Israeli settlements.
This land confiscation, often justified on security grounds or based on interpretations of Ottoman-era land laws, dispossessed many Palestinian families and exacerbated economic hardship.
The occupation also led to the emergence of various forms of Palestinian resistance, ranging from peaceful protests and civil disobedience to armed struggle. Palestinian political factions, such as the Palestine Liberation Organization, gained prominence, advocating for self-determination and an end to the occupation.
The occupation became a catalyst for Palestinian national identity and a driving force behind their struggle for independence.
The Israeli military's response to Palestinian resistance often involved the use of force, leading to clashes, arrests, and casualties. The cycle of violence and repression further deepened the divide between Israelis and Palestinians, making it increasingly difficult to build trust and pursue meaningful dialogue. The occupation created a volatile environment characterized by instability and recurring cycles of violence. The legal and moral dimensions of occupation. The legality of the Israeli occupation is a subject of ongoing debate. Critics argue it violates the Fourth Geneva Convention. Israeli settlements are widely condemned by legal scholars. The moral implications are also widely debated. Critics argue the occupation creates injustice and inequality. Supporters argue it is necessary for security reasons. These arguments are challenged by those advocating for human rights. Addressing the occupation is essential for sustainable peace. In the aftermath of the Six-Day War, Arab leaders convened in Khartoum, Sudan, in August 1967. The summit aimed to forge a unified Arab response to Israel's victory. The meeting resulted in the Khartoum Resolution, shaping the Arab-Israeli conflict. It famously articulated the three no's: no peace, no recognition, and no negotiations with Israel. This stance became a major obstacle to future peace efforts. The Six-Day War profoundly impacted the Palestinian national movement. The defeat shattered the hope of liberation through external intervention. This led to a surge in Palestinian nationalism and self-reliance. The PLO, founded in 1964, gained prominence after the war. Under Yasser Arafat, the PLO became more militant. The rise of Palestinian nationalism garnered international support. Section 3, Rebuilding and Rearming a Path to Future Conflict. The Khartoum Resolution rejected peace with Israel but recognized the need to rebuild military strength. The Six-Day War exposed weaknesses, highlighting the need for modernization. The Soviet Union re-equipped the Egyptian and Syrian armies, expanding its influence. The influx of Soviet weaponry increased Arab military capabilities and dependence. This conventional build-up neglected lessons on Israel's tactics and air superiority. The stage was set for the War of Attrition and the Yom Kippur War. Following the Six-Day War, the Suez Canal became a focal point of tension and conflict between Egypt and Israel. With the Sinai Peninsula under Israeli control, the canal remained closed.
Determined to reclaim lost territory, we launched the War of Attrition to wear down Israeli forces.
The canal zone transformed into a militarized zone, with both sides preparing for a protracted struggle. The War of Attrition was marked by artillery duels, cross-canal raids, and aerial bombardments. Egyptian forces, re-equipped with Soviet weaponry, targeted Israeli positions along the Bar-Lev line. Israel responded with airstrikes against Egyptian military targets. The war gradually settled into a stalemate, with neither side able to achieve a decisive victory. Section 2, Escalation and Stalemate, a War of Attrition. As the War of Attrition dragged on, both sides escalated their military efforts.
Egypt, with continued Soviet support, intensified its artillery bombardments and deployed commando units to conduct raids across the canal. These raids, while often incurring heavy casualties, aimed to demonstrate Egyptian resolve and maintain pressure on Israeli forces.
The intensity of the fighting fluctuated, with periods of relative calm punctuated by intense exchanges of fire. Israel responded with deeper airstrikes into Egyptian territory, targeting military installations, airfields, and infrastructure. The air war became a crucial element of the conflict, with Israel seeking to degrade Egypt's military capabilities and prevent a resurgence of Egyptian offensive power. The airstrikes, while effective in disrupting Egyptian operations, also resulted in civilian casualties, further fueling the cycle of violence.
Despite the escalation of military efforts, neither side was able to achieve a decisive breakthrough. The War of Attrition became a war of attrition in the truest sense, a grueling and costly conflict with no clear end in sight.
The stalemate reflected the deep-seated animosity between the two nations and the lack of a political solution to the underlying issues. The war exacted a heavy toll on both sides, both in terms of human lives and economic resources. The constant shelling and airstrikes disrupted civilian life, causing displacement and hardship. The prolonged conflict also had a psychological impact, deepening the sense of insecurity and fueling the desire for revenge.
The War of Attrition, while limited in scope, had far-reaching consequences for the region, further entrenching the cycle of violence and mistrust.
Section 3, International Involvement and the End of Hostilities. The War of Attrition attracted increasing international attention. The United States and the Soviet Union became increasingly involved, providing military and diplomatic support. Their involvement risked escalating the situation.
The United States provided military aid and diplomatic backing to Israel. The Soviet Union supplied weapons and military advisors to Egypt. The superpowers' involvement transformed the war of attrition into a proxy conflict.
The risk of direct confrontation added a dangerous dimension. The war of attrition ended with a ceasefire agreement in August 1970. The Six-Day War, a brief but transformative conflict, stands as a watershed moment in the history of the Middle East. Its reverberations continue to shape the political landscape and fuel the ongoing Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The war's most immediate consequence was the dramatic redrawing of borders. These territorial gains brought a large Palestinian population under Israeli control. The unresolved status of these territories remains a central obstacle to peace. Section 2. The Unfinished Business of Peace Lessons and Challenges. The Six-Day War and its aftermath underscore the unfinished business of peace in the Middle East. The war's legacy continues to hinder efforts to achieve a lasting resolution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The war's lessons offer valuable insights into the challenges and opportunities for future peacemaking.
One key lesson is the fragility of peace without a comprehensive settlement. The unresolved Palestinian refugee problem and the status of Jerusalem contributed to escalating tensions. A lasting peace requires addressing the root causes of the conflict and finding equitable solutions.
The war demonstrated the limitations of military force in achieving long-term security. The occupation of Palestinian territories became a source of ongoing conflict and instability. The ongoing search for peace faces numerous challenges, including deep-seated mistrust and unresolved grievances. Despite these challenges, the pursuit of peace remains a vital imperative. The lessons of the Six-Day War offer a roadmap for future peacemaking. Building trust, fostering dialogue, and promoting reconciliation are crucial steps towards a peaceful future.